Shall we begin? Sri Aurobindo spoke about this world that we live in as an enigmatic universe, that it's very difficult to understand what is its meaning and significance. So when here it says it, that is this enigmatic universe. It wears to the perishable creature's eyes the grandeur of a useless miracle, wasting itself that it may last a while, a river that can never find its sea. It runs through life and death on an edge of time. A fire in the night is its mighty action's blaze. This is our deepest need, to join once more what now is parted, opposite and twain, remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, or fronting like far poles of night and day. We must fill the immense lacuna we have made, re-wed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind, the narrow isthmus of the ascending soul. We must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea, reconstitute the perfect word, unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Then shall the spirit and nature be at one. Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. In the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude, aloof, resplendent like gold dazzling suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear. The spirit's bare and absolute potencies burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. A rapture and a radiance and a hush, delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. In his inalienable bliss they live, immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Implacable in their timeless purity, all barter or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer. They reckon not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. A deep surrender is their source of might. A still identity, their way to know. Motionless is their action, like a sleep. At peace, regarding the trouble beneath the stars. Deathless, watching the works of death and chance. Immobile, seeing the millenniums pass. Untouched, while the long map of fate unrolls. They look on our struggle with impartial eyes. And yet, without them, cosmos could not be. So in what we read earlier on in this section, from page 55 onwards, Sri Aurobindo was talking about there being a kind of split in our consciousness. No? We're moving here between the being's dark and luminous ends, but we are cut off from the integral thought and the total power. The consciousness of this universe seems to be cut off from the origin and from the fulfillment. It's far from the original dusk and the final flame. And he mentioned that it's like a fragment of the universal word. The universal word, the Om, which has 3 syllables, which makes up the 4th part, which is the whole word. No? So he says the consciousness of this universe seems to be like a fragment, which is leaving 2 giant letters, the light and the dark end of things. Those seem to be meaningless because they're not connected to each other or to anything else. And without sanction, for no apparent reason, the middle turn is just cycling round and round, carrying this enigmatic universe that we live in. So now he's telling us that what our deepest need is to reunite these separate ends of things.
It's very interesting, Shraddhavan. Just before I came, I opened February 1972, and Mother said, only the psychic. You have experience of his psychic. He established totally, but suddenly, maybe, Shri Aurobindo, like I said, he give experience, suddenly is cut. And must suffer incredibly, not for personnel, but for humanity. He understands when human is not put his psychic in the front and drive in many actions, everything is a suffering. Well, it's very attentive when you tell split from the...
Well, it's not me, it's That's what he is saying. Leaves two giant letters void of sense. And here is our universe turning round and round. And we don't know what is the sanction for it. What is its meaning? What is its origin? What's significance? What's its destiny? That's not obvious. So we can read on from line 172. Bhavana, you'll begin. Other side. Okay. Sarojini, you begin, please.
It wears to the perceivable creature's eyes the grandeur of a useless miracle, wasting itself that it might last a while. A river that can never find its sea. It runs through life and death on an edge of time. A fire in the night is its mighty action and place.
Yes. So this enigmatic universe that we find ourselves in, to us, perishable creatures, as far as we can see with our mortal eyes, this universe, we see the material universe. It's glorious. It's so beautiful. If we see these images from the Hubble telescope, it's stretching so far, we don't know how far. But it seems to be a useless miracle. It doesn't seem to have a purpose or a significance. Why all this beauty? Why all this energy? Why all this scattering of matter through almost infinite space? This material universe seems to be, according to what the physicists tell us, it's burning itself up. It's wasting itself so that it can last for a while, so that we can see all these marvels which don't seem to have any purpose. But the physicists tell us that it's all disintegrating. Or it's like a river, a flow of energy which never finds its sea. It never finds what it has to run into to be fulfilled and completed. It runs through this process of life and death, which is characteristic of the material universe, on an edge of time, as if it's on a kind of mountain ridge, past on one side, future on the other, on this edge of time. And all that mighty action of the universe, it's full of energy, it's blazing away, but it's just a fire in the night, in the darkness. We don't know why it is burning, where it has come from, what its meaning is. That's how it looks like to us ordinary human beings. Would you read?
This is our deepest need, to join once more what now is parted, opposite and twain, remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, affronting like far poles of night and day.
This is our deepest need, to join once more all these contraries that are separated, everything that's parted, opposite, contradictory. And twain means split in two. And these opposites seem to be very far away from each other. Each of them is ruling a sphere of existence, a sovereign sphere which is independent. And those spheres never meet, they never unite. Or it's like they are poles of a magnet, or forever alternating like night and day. The night that always gives birth to a new day, and the day that always gives birth to another night.
What is mean here as poles? Pole is...
Yeah, you have a pole to hold up the roof, but you also have a north pole and a south pole. They are opposites, and that usage refers to a magnet. If we have a piece of metal that's magnetized, it has a positive pole and a negative pole, and those poles seem to repel each other, push each other apart. And yet, however much you cut up the magnet, those two poles will always be there, even if it's just a thin slice of metal. One side will be the positive pole and one will be the negative pole. So they can't be separated.
These two poles refer to material life or the spiritual life, or the two poles of the material life?
I think here he's referring to all the opposites that we experience in our material universe. We live in a world of duality, no? So spirit and nature, that's one of the opposites. But our sense of right and wrong, night and day, light and dark, these are all things that we can't separate in this consciousness. No? And yet they're opposite, they're contradictory. It's really, I notice it's one of the characteristics of our mind that somehow we can't say yes to anything without seeming to say no to something else. Because our mind is not integral like that. It's polar.
So in other words, very nicely.
Yeah.
This function of the mind always to separate.
To separate, yeah. It actually is the function of the mind. Sri Aurobindo's described it in The Life Divine. That somehow, in order for that oneness to become this many, there had to be on the way a force that separated and divided and defined things. So who's next? Alice?
We must fill the immense lacuna we have made, re-wed the closed infinites.
No, the closed finites.
Finites, lonely consonant, with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind. The narrow isthmus of the ascending soul, we must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea. Reconstitute the perfect word. Unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Then shall the spirit and nature be at one.
So, this is our greatest need. To move out of this consciousness of separation and duality. We must fill the immense lacuna we have made. A lacuna is a gap in a manuscript, old manuscripts. And sometimes you can't understand what is being said because there's a few words missing. So there's a gap. And what we need to do is here we are living in the finite world where everything is defined and separate. That's like this closed consonant, the But we have to connect that of matter with the ah and the oo of infinity. Only then things will make sense. The open vowels of infinity. That's the difference between a vowel and a consonant. A consonant you can only speak by closing your mouth somewhere or closing the flow of air somewhere. But a vowel is open. Oh, it can go on and on and on without limit. And he says, even there's matter and there's mind. There's substance and there's consciousness. These seem to be separate, but we need to connect them with a hyphen. We connect two words with a hyphen to make them into one word. Re-wed, exactly, yes. Yeah. There he's put his hyphen. No? So what is that hyphen going to be? He says it's going to be an isthmus. An isthmus is a narrow neck of land between two larger land masses. The striking example is Panama. Now they've cut through the hyphen, but there used to be a narrow isthmus of land connecting the North American part from the Central and South American part. So, yes, what human beings do when there's an isthmus, for their convenience, they cut through it. But he says this connecting link, this will be the ascending soul, the evolving, developing soul on its upward journey will create this link between mind and matter, matter and mind. That's our task as human beings, to renew the secret bond in things. Secretly, there is only oneness. Everything is connected. But our mind has great difficulty in experiencing it like that. So we have to get out of this consciousness of duality and opposition. We have to renew the secret bond in things. And that can happen if our hearts or our souls that are deep within our hearts remember, if they recall that divine idea which was at the origin of things and which we have lost sight of when we accepted to enter into this material universe. We have that perfect word, the word of creation, the universal word, has been split up, cut up. So we have to put it together again, reconstitute the perfect word. Unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Alpha is the first letter of the Greek alphabet, and Omega was the last letter. So we use these two words to mean the beginning and the end of things. What he's saying is that the beginning and the end have been separated, and there's a gap in between. We have to unite them again in one sound. And perhaps that one sound is the sound that we symbolize by Om. Then shall the spirit and nature be at one. There won't be any contradiction or separation anymore. We will realize that spirit and nature are like two aspects, two faces, two poles of the same thing. But then he's going to tell us this duality seems to exist even on the higher levels. Mila.
Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. In the wide silence, issue of the self. In the unchanging silence, white and mute, aloof, resplendent like gold blazing suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear. The spirits bear an absolute potencies, burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God.
So he says this mysterious plan of everything, it has two ends. And at one end are the spirit's bare and absolute potencies. They exist in the one self, in that wide, signless ether, that most rarefied atmosphere which we can't breathe, no? Which our material scientists can't even detect. They have decided that there's no such thing as ether because their instruments can't detect it. But surely it does, no? In the wide, signless ether of the self, beyond the manifestation, in that unchanging silence, white, nude, absolutely bare and pure. The spirit's bare and absolute potencies burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. All the powers and possibilities of spirit, there they are, vivid, alive, full of energy in the thoughts of God. But they are so far away from us that they seem aloof. They're resplendent, burning so gloriously, like gold, dazzling suns. But we can't see them because our mortal eyes can't look at that ray. So they are veiled to us by that ray no mortal eye can bear. But there they are, the spirit's bare and absolute potencies. All powerful powers burning in the solitude of the thoughts of God. And now he's going to describe those powers to us over the next two pages.
This silence is talking about. Before that, you were talking about Om, the song.
Yes.
Now he's talking about silence.
Yes, and this is the silence before that word of creation, before the manifestation.
Thank you.
Who's next? Will you read?
A rapture and a radiance and a hush delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. It is inalienable, this David.
Thank you. So he's characterizing them. They are a rapture. They live in bliss. They're constituted from bliss. They are radiant, full of light and silence. A rapture and a radiance and a hush. And they are completely free. We can't get anywhere near them. They are delivered from the approach of wounded hearts like our hearts that suffer from the imperfections of nature. They are denied even to our idea. We can't have any concept of them because our idea is full of grief and suffering. That is our experience. No? They are remote, they are far away from the force that's working here and which suffers, which cries out in its pain. They live in the inalienable bliss of God, of the divine. Inalienable. Nothing can take away that bliss from him. It's inalienable. It's his nature. They live in that bliss. Walter, is it Walter? William. Sorry. William.
Immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they come and in him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve.
Yes. They are immaculate, absolutely stainless and perfect in their self-knowledge and in their self-power, not only in consciousness, but in dynamic action. But they are always at rest. Calm, they repose on the eternal will. That's what they are based on. They only obey the law of the eternal. That's the only thing that matters to them. That's what they obey. For themselves, they have no goal to reach. They have no aim to serve. They're not going anywhere. They are just where they need to be, reposing on the will of the eternal. Will you read?
Implacable in their timeless purity, all bartering or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer, they reckon not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error in its raven. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree.
Yes. Implacable. It means, usually it's a negative word in our normal speech. Implacable. It means somebody who's absolutely severe and unbending, without mercy, without love. But they are implacable in their timeless purity. They can't be anything but pure. And so they don't have anything to do with our kind of worship, which is barter. Lord, I'll worship you, but please give me this or that. No. Barter and bribe. Automatically, they refuse that. They're not affected when we shake our fists and give our cries of revolt, and they are not affected by our ignorant prayers. They are not counting up our good and bad deeds. They reckon not our virtue and our sin. And they are not listening to these voices that implore, that are begging and calling to them. They have no commerce, no exchange, no connection with this world of error, where we can't help making mistakes. We are ruled by error. No? Their task is to be guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers, again, guardians of the immutable decree, the command that has gone out from the eternal, which can't be changed. Their task is to protect and uphold that. Suresh.
A deeper surrender is the source of mind. And still identity, the way to know. Motionless is the action like a sea.
Yes. So, the source of their strength is that they're completely surrendered to the will of the eternal. And their way of knowing is through their oneness with the Lord. They act, but they act without moving, as if they are in a state of trance, motionless. Lela.
At peace regarding the trouble beneath the stars, deathless, watching the works of death and chance, immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, untouched while the long map of fate unrolls, they look on our struggle with impartial eyes, and yet without them cosmos could not be.
They are there at peace. They are watching, looking at all the trouble that goes on here beneath the stars. They are deathless. They watch all that's happening here, the works of death and chance, but they don't move. They're immobile, unchangeable, but they see the millenniums pass. They observe what's going on. They don't feel any emotion one way or the other while this long map of fate unrolls, this whole process that is fixed but which has to unroll in time. They see our struggle, they look on our struggle, but they have no preferences one way or the other. So they seem to be very remote and aloof and to have nothing to do with us. And yet, says Sri Aurobindo, without them, cosmos could not be. This harmony of a universe could not exist at all without the support of these bare and absolute potencies of the Spirit.
The plural of millennia, isn't it millennia?
Yes, it's sometimes it's millennia,
But you can also say
but here you
millenniums.
can also say millenniums. Yeah.
Is it poetic or it can be used?
Actually, it's a bit less poetic than millennia, but obviously Sri Aurobindo wanted it here.
What is the translation of regarding here? For me, it's difficult to understand. At peace, regarding the trouble beneath the stars.
Yes, they are at peace, but here beneath the stars we are not at peace at all. It's all full of trouble. They see it, but they are not. They see, but they are not disturbed.
Yeah, but okay, for me, this word regarding is very.
Yes. There's somebody at the back there. Would you read, sir?
impervious to desire and bloom and flow, their station of inviolable mind. Moveless of course, the world's enormous task, its ignorance is by their knowledge lifted, its yearning lost by their indifference.
So impervious. Impervious means that you can't be penetrated. You can't be touched or moved. They are not touched or moved by our desire, our hope, even the disasters that happen to us. They are static. They have a station, a place where they remain. A station of inviolable might, of power, of strength that cannot be lessened or affected in any way. The fact that they are there, and that station of inviolable might, and that without moving, that is, their motionlessness is upholding and supporting the world's enormous task, all this great labor that has to happen in the material universe. And the ignorance that is here is lit. It does receive light from their knowledge. And the yearning that we experience here, the longing for things to be different, for things to be better, this yearning persists because of their indifference, because they don't choose one way or the other. Oma.
As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breadths draw the small to adventure vast, their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. Our passion heaves to wed the eternal's come. Our doves search mind to meet the omniscient's light. Our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotent's force.
Thank you. So Sri Aurobindo says it's like here on earth, the fact that there are high mountains makes us human beings want to climb them. As the heights draw the low ever to climb, just the fact that they are there, it's attractive to get to the top and see the view. And as the breadths, the wide spaces, draw the small beings like us to undertake great adventures and discover what is there on the other side of the ocean. The fact that they keep themselves so remote, their aloofness, impels us human beings to try to become more than we are, to overcome our limitations, to surpass ourselves. Our passions, all our intense feelings, he says, it's like an ocean that is heaving. The waves of the ocean are attracted by the moon's gravity, so that the tides come and go. It's as if the calm of the eternal is attracting, making our emotions move intensely. And our little mind, our dwarf search mind, heaves, makes an effort to meet the omniscience, the omniscience light We want to experience that light. And our helpless hearts long to enshrine the force of the all-powerful. Because we are helpless, we aspire to have great force. We can read one more sentence, Karim.
Acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell, and the harsh utility of death and tears, acquiescing in the gradual steps of time. Careless they seem of the grief that stings the world's heart, careless of the pain that rends its body and life. Above joy and sorrow is that grandeur's walk. They have no portion in the good that dies. Mute, pure, they share not in the evil done. Else might their strength be marred and could not save.
Yes. They have to remain pure. And because of their identity with the will of the eternal, they acquiesce, they agree to, or they agree with the wisdom that has created something like hell. I don't think Sri Aurobindo at all accepts the normal Christian idea of hell as of a place of eternal punishment and suffering. But there's something like hell, and he describes it. Even Savitri passes through that state which seems like lasting forever, of being absolutely hopeless and alone and without any connection to the good and the true. And it can happen. And here he suggests there's a wisdom behind that makes it like that. And they say yes to that. And they say yes to the harsh utility of death and tears. Yes, those things are necessary in this evolving process. They say yes to the gradual steps of time. We often feel impatient and that it's all taking far too long. But they don't feel like that. They say yes to these gradual steps of time. So it seems as if they don't care about the grief that stings the world's heart, all the suffering that's here in our world. As if they don't care about the pain that is tearing at the body, the material body and the material life. Their grandeur walks, moves above joy and sorrow. They are beyond these dualities. They have no portion, they are not connected in any way to the good that dies, that causes us such a sorrow when good things are destroyed or disappear. No. Mute, silent, pure. They do not share at all in any of the evil that's done in our world. They have to keep detached and remote from all that. Otherwise, their strength, which is upholding all this universe and everything that happens in it, would be marred, would be spoiled, and they would not be able to save us.
Excuse me. Somewhere Shri Aurobindo has given that idea about if you want to possess the heaven, we have to face the hell. Somewhat like similar to the
Yes,
idea.
it is in It's in Book 2, Canto 8, that if really you are on the path towards heaven, you will have to have a taste at least of that experience of what seems like eternal damnation, although it isn't really. We'll stop there today. On the next page, he's going to tell us that whatever happens here to us, through the bitterness of death and fall, an outstretched hand is felt upon our lives. We're not left alone here in this dead, rotating universe. Those bare and absolute powers of the Spirit keep themselves remote, but nevertheless, here on earth, a divine intervention is always in charge of things, and that outstretched hand is always ready, close to us, to help us and to keep our destiny safe. We'll read about that next week.
It wears to the perishable creature's eyes the grandeur of a useless miracle, wasting itself that it may last a while, a river that can never find its sea. It runs through life and death on an edge of time. A fire in the night is its mighty action's blaze. This is our deepest need, to join once more what now is parted, opposite and twain, remote in sovereign spheres that never meet, or fronting like far poles of night and day. We must fill the immense lacuna we have made, re-wed the closed finite's lonely consonant with the open vowels of infinity. A hyphen must connect matter and mind, the narrow isthmus of the ascending soul. We must renew the secret bond in things. Our hearts recall the lost divine idea, reconstitute the perfect word, unite the Alpha and the Omega in one sound. Then shall the Spirit and nature be at one. Two are the ends of the mysterious plan. In the wide, signless ether of the self, in the unchanging silence, white and nude, aloof, resplendent like gold dazzling suns, veiled by the ray no mortal eye can bear, the Spirit's bare and absolute potencies burn in the solitude of the thoughts of God. A rapture and a radiance and a hush, delivered from the approach of wounded hearts, denied to the idea that looks at grief, remote from the force that cries out in its pain. In his inalienable bliss they live. Immaculate in self-knowledge and self-power, calm they repose on the eternal will. Only his law they count and him obey. They have no goal to reach, no aim to serve. Implacable in their timeless purity, all barter or bribe of worship they refuse. Unmoved by cry of revolt and ignorant prayer, they reckon not our virtue and our sin. They bend not to the voices that implore. They hold no traffic with error and its reign. They are guardians of the silence of the truth. They are keepers of the immutable decree. A deep surrender is their source of might. A still identity their way to know. Motionless is their action like a sleep. At peace regarding the trouble beneath the stars. Deathless, watching the works of death and chance, immobile, seeing the millenniums pass, untouched, while the long map of fate unrolls, they look on our struggle with impartial eyes. And yet, without them, cosmos could not be. Impervious to desire and doom and hope, their station of inviolable might, moveless, upholds the world's enormous task. Its ignorance is by their knowledge lit. Its yearning lasts by their indifference. As the height draws the low ever to climb, as the breadths draw the small to adventure vast, their aloofness drives man to surpass himself. Our passion heaves to wed the eternal's calm. Our dwarf-search mind to meet the omniscient's light. Our helpless hearts to enshrine the omnipotent its force. Acquiescing in the wisdom that made hell, and the harsh utility of death and tears, acquiescing in the gradual steps of time, careless they seem of the grief that stings the world's heart, careless of the pain that rends its body and life. Above joy and sorrow is that grandeur's walk. They have no portion in the good that dies. Mute, pure, they share not in the evil done. Else might their strength be marred and could not save.